Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. President Obama continues to divide the country over terrorism. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. At this point, at least 31 governors have told the president they oppose allowing Syrian refugees into the country. 8 governors say they support the action: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Pennsylvania, Vermont, and Washington. Talking Points believes the argument should be moot. As we put forth last night, NATO should declare war on ISIS, and in doing so, that alliance could then move into Syria, set up safe zones for refugees, and a huge problem might begin to be solved. If Syrians in danger are protected by NATO forces on the ground, there's no reason for them to go to Turkey, Europe, or America. So in addition to confronting ISIS militarily, the 28 NATO nations would be providing safe zones for civilians at risk. Does that make sense? Of course it does. So why won't President Obama take the lead in mobilizing NATO against ISIS? We discussed a myriad of reasons last night, but here's one that makes the most sense. Mr. Obama does not have the will to lead in the war on terror. We've seen this before in the White House. President James Buchanan, who served from 1857 to 1861, absolutely sat on his hands when the nation was dividing over the issues of slavery and economic policy. Buchanan, perhaps the worst president in U.S. history, allowed the situation to get out of control, and so the Civil War began. Right now, President Obama is in a similar situation, continuing his passive posture as the terror problem grows worse. His policy is one of disengagement, and that has led to mass chaos in the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. Listen to this analysis of the president on CNN, usually sympathetic to Mr. Obama.
He said something that was pretty incredible, according to many of the military experts here and around the world who I've spoken to, that our strategy is working. People do not believe that to be the case. The only strategy that's working is the strategy that he tends to dismiss, and that's the ground troop strategy.
Wow. Now, next week, French President Oreilly will visit the White House, and we assume some new strategy will be announced, something. Because at this point in history, it is Barack Obama who's setting himself up for an amazing defeat should the ISIS terrorists strike America or continue their mass killings overseas. If Mr. Obama values his legacy at all, he will think long and hard about leading the NATO alliance against the ISIS savages. And in his deliberation, he should gaze up at the picture of James Buchanan hanging on a White House wall. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction with us here in New York City, the governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie. So you've been adamant in saying no Syrian refugees in the Garden State. Why?
Because I don't trust this president and his Homeland Security Department or State Department to vet these folks. I just don't.
What if they send you the names of people that they would like to move into Jersey, and you had the state troopers and the intelligence apparatus you have vet them? Would that be acceptable?
Not sufficient, because even the FBI director says with their database, his FBI director, Jim Comey, said, we don't have the data on these folks to be able to do the right kind of background checks. He said it before Congress just the other day.
But you would assume that 10,000 refugees, which is just a pittance of what there are, okay, the people that would come to the United States would be the people that have passports and IDs and fingerprint checks and all of this. You know, they know nobody would take somebody who doesn't have any ID or any history. So if you could get, you know, some kind of, what I'm trying to get at is this. We're a humanitarian nation.
We are.
All right, you're a Christian.
Yes, sir.
I'm a Christian. The Pope says we got to help these refugees. And I'm thinking, if I'm a governor, I say, I'm going to do my own vetting. And if my people say they're okay, and I would take mainly women and children, only a few men who are family heads, then I'm going to let them in. Would I be wrong?
I think you would be, and here's why. We don't have the databases to be able to do this at the state level. We just don't. We count on the Department of Homeland Security predominantly, and the FBI and CIA. And so this president has degraded those folks and demoralized.
But that's what I'm saying. If you get a list of names and your guys in Jersey can't say to you, looking you in the eye, these people are safe, I wouldn't let them in.
Well, I'm confident that since the FBI director has already said he can't do it, then my head of Homeland Security won't be able to do it if the guy who has the apparatus and the entire FBI behind him.
I wouldn't let anybody in, but it seems to me that if you have, some little children and their mother, the threat level would be pretty low.
Well, lower, but again, they don't even communicate to us. We know that they've been placing refugees in states, including ours, without even communicating to us.
Well, let me stop you here. So you have refugees from around the world in New Jersey that you don't even know about?
Correct.
Is that right?
The administration places them directly with non-governmental organizations, and they do not even give the administration in the state the courtesy of the information.
Give me an example of that. Do you have
we have about 75 Syrian refugees that have come in since January into New Jersey that we were never advised about, ever.
And where are they now?
Well, now we're trying to find them throughout by going to the non-governmental organizations,
so like Catholic charities?
Like Catholic charities and others who place them, but the administration places them directly through those organizations.
And the Catholic charities and the other charities, they're not obligated to tell you that they got doing it.
They are not.
So they just show up, these people? They go through Newark Airport with no credentials?
They have credentials, but they go through Catholic charities, moves them through, and other types of non-governmental organizations. And the administration, and that's why today they have a rushed phone call this afternoon to have a conversation with the governors to try to convince us that we should do this. But our point to them in the letter that I wrote to them, I said, you don't even show us the courtesy of telling us that you're going to put people into our states, and you're doing it already anyway.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible.
It really is. I mean, because I want America to be a humane place, an example for the rest of the world.
Yep.
And you know how many refugees we took from Southeast Asia,
of course,
after Vietnam and all of that.
But my point to you on this, Bill, is that we want to be a humane nation, but our first job
is to protect the people here. Okay,
right. But
I don't think a 6-year-old is going to throw a bomb on anybody, but I could be wrong. Now, did you watch President Obama's press conference from Turkey yesterday? Did you see it?
I did.
And what went through your mind?
That this is a guy, and I said this on Saturday, this is a guy who lives in a fantasy world. He lives in a world as he'd like to see it, not the world as it is. And for him to say the things that he said the other day from Turkey are just fantasy land.
What stands out that he said to you?
Well, we start off on Thursday by him saying that ISIS was contained.
Okay,
and then
that was an embarrassment,
later, right? And then he said that our strategy is working. Our strategy is working. Tell the families of the dead in Paris that the strategy is working.
Now, Hillary Clinton, do you think she'd be tougher on ISIS than Obama?
No idea, because if you listen to her in the debate on Saturday night, she says that this is not America's problem, but America needs to lead. I mean, is that that's a typical double talk from a politician who's been around Washington too long?
She did call for a no-fly zone in Syria against President Obama's policy. Mrs. Clinton did.
Right. And as have I and others, anyone with any lick of common sense would call for that.
Now, if you are the presidential nominee of the Republican Party, do you go after Hillary Clinton of being soft on terrorism? Do you make that a centerpiece?
Well, two things. Yes, you do.
So you think she's soft on terrorism?
Sure. She's a part of the Obama administration that has pursued this strategy, and she was one of the architects of his foreign policy in the first 4 years. And she needs to take responsibility for it. And if she doesn't like his policy, then she should be speaking out now, not waiting until the general election, speaking out now against that policy. And secondly, I'm the only guy on that stage that's actually done this, Bill. You know, I've worked with the Patriot Act. I've done those things. That's why I spoke out starting last spring, that what they were doing to take away the powers of our agencies like NSA, like
surveillance
the CIA,
powers and all of that.
Big mistake.
Right.
And the American people now know that this has made us less safe. By the way, in France, that took a lot of planning. And that's an intelligence failure that they didn't catch that, because it took a lot of planning for people in multiple countries.
All right, Governor, we appreciate you coming in as always. Thank you.